Hi, friends. I hope you have a great day. I hope this is a good day of practice for you. Grab your whistle, play a tune that you know, experiment with ornamenting and expressing, grab a scale exercise, run through that, fine tune some of your skills with whole coverage and tone quality. And so do that for your practice today, unless you had another uh, practice idea in mind. But in our time together in this video, what I really want to talk about, I want to review some of the terms used to describe the parts and pieces of a whistle. So this is important for us because you're going to hear me, you're going to hear a lot of other people. We throw words around describing the parts and pieces of a whistle, and it's important for us to just have a general understanding of what those parts and pieces are, because you don't want to be going, I have no idea what that word is. There's no test here. There's nothing you've got to memorize. I just want us to have a reasonable understanding. But I want to start off that sort of vocabulary video today and talk about a flute for just a moment. Think about a flute. It's a long tube. It's closed on one end. It's open on the other. There are, more simple flute has holes. More modern flute will have some keys. But there's a hole cut out of that tube, and you blow across it. There's a real art to blowing across that hole. And as you blow across the hole, the idea is not for you to blow straight into the flute, but to blow across the hole. Some air doesn't go in, some air does go in, and that creates this oscillation of the air in the flute. And you keep blowing, and you're consistently blowing, and that pushes that vibrating air through the tube of the flute. And then depending upon what holes are covered or uncovered, that now sound wave in the tube is going to come out as different notes. That's overly simplistic because it's a highly engineered instrument. You get into some of the key systems, and even the shape and the size of that hole you're blowing across impacts and determines some of the tone qualities. The material from which the flute is made determines some of the tone qualities, the diameter, the length, all those things. But that's not what we're after. What we're after today is, what are some of those bits called? And I started with a flute for a very specific reason. And that is that there was somebody decided, if instead of blowing across that hole, what we could do is we could create something where you blow into the end of it, and it focuses the air, and then it hits it. There's a hole, and at the end of the hole, there's like this bit sticking down, and then that forces some air out and some air in, and it creates the same kind of oscillation that then goes through the tube, and then you could play it. And so that little thing that you blow into that focuses the air and forces some out and some in, and the oscillation, they called that a fipple. And so when people refer to a whistle, some people, you'll hear them say a Fipple flute. So instead of blowing, I've got one of the Clark originals. Well, it's not an original Clark, it's just called that. Instead of blowing this way, the Fipple is the thing that focuses the air, and then there's a cutout, and there's a little bit pushed in that causes the oscillation, and then it works just like the flute does, but different. And so that thing they invented was called a Fipple, and this is then a Fipple flute, according to some. That's why you're gonna hear that. So they've got and we're going to get into these words, but there is an airway. That's the bit you blow into. There is the tone hole or window, and then there is the blade or ramp, and that's what causes some air to go out and some in. And then you've got to close the end of the rolled tube you made. And so you stick a block in there. And very simplistic, but beautiful. Works so well. So anyway, a whistle is a Fipple flute, meaning you blow into the end that focuses the air, creates that oscillating impact, and that works. You'll then also hear a whistle referred to by some people, particularly the high whistle, as a flageolet. Flageolet. And that is simply an 18th century French word. My French is terrible, so forgive my pronunciation. And it simply means an instrument with a Fipple mouthpiece. Flageolet. So, and the name stuck with some of the tin whistles. So anyway, so that's that. Fipple. And the funny thing is, some people say the Fipple is the whole head. Some people say the Fipple is the bit that focuses the air with the hole and the ramp or blade. And some people say, it's any combination of the above, which is kind of funny. And it works. It's okay. You need to know that some of these terms are used differently. They're a little broad, they're a little fuzzy, but you're going to hear them, and you've got to have a general sense of what they are. So don't get legalistic on what a Fipple is. Just know that it's some of the key bits of the head of your whistle. So I talked about the head of the whistle. The head of the whistle is, this is the Howard. The head of the whistle is, this is tunable. The head comes off. That's the head of the whistle. You might call it a mouthpiece, and some other terms are used, and that's what that is. So, head or mouthpiece. That's the bit into which you blow. And in today's world, for the most part, it's not always the case, but for the most part, the head is a highly engineered and crafted part of the whistle, designed to do very specific things to control the air, to craft the tone, and so a bunch of stuff. Early whistles like this Clark just had a hunk of wood and the tin rolled over it, and they just punched a hole there. And now you have very, very highly engineered heads, crafted, designed, and built on a lot of high-end manufacturing equipment. So anyway, that's the head. The head, the mouthpiece. You'll hear that. Now, the parts of the head, we've said a bit. So the bit you blow into is the airway or windway. Okay? Then there is the window or tone hole. That's that opening there. Then there is the blade or ramp that you'll see in the tone hole that's kind of projecting in an angle down into that chamber there. A side note, if you're going to be careful of your whistle. I don't like my whistle to get scratched. I don't never want my whistle to get dented. But the thing that will damage the tone of your whistle faster than anything is if you hurt that ramp or blade there, because that is what determines how the air oscillates in your whistle, setting up the air going through. So you mess that up, you're messing up the way the air is going to vibrate. So anyway, airway, windway that you blow into, blade or ramp. This is the window or tone hole. You might have, like, depending upon the whistle, you might have a block. That's built into this one. On some whistles, like this is a Carry Optima, you may not be able to see it, but I could actually see the seam of something that's been pressed into here. That's this is not a single molded piece. My Howard is a single molded piece, but there's a block of the same material as the head has been pressed into here. And so you get a lot, you see that in a variety of different ways. And on some whistles, you might see layers laminated together, but it's all the same thing. It's just made a little more fancy. So now you've got the tube or body of the whistle, the bore. The bore sometimes refers to the inside diameter. Is that a narrow bore whistle? Is that a wide bore whistle? Wide bore is often louder, often requires more air as well. Standard bore, narrow bore, or you will also hear tapered bore, like this Clark. It's fatter at the top than at the bottom. And some low D whistles use a tapered bore design. And each of these things impacts the whistle's ability to play and the tone and some of the things you can accomplish with it. So that's the body, the tube. The bore sometimes is the inside diameter reference, and sometimes is the design of the bore. Whew. There are the finger holes that you're going to cover. I've heard some people refer to these now and then as tone holes, but the tone hole's really this thing up here, the window. Is the tone hole primarily. But if somebody wants to call these the tone holes, I don't care. The note holes, they're really the finger holes. You cover those. Now the tuning slide, one last thing. Some whistles, like the Howard has this really nifty feature. I need to replace my tape, but you might be able to see these little graded lines there. That helps so that you could be precise. I just took my whistle off. I know where it is for me in tune. And I replaced the tape. I'm putting the head back on, or I changed heads. All I have to do is take it back to that specific line that I already knew. And line it up. Make sure it's in line. The tone hole and the finger holes, it just makes it easier blowing and playing. So the tuning slide here, the tuning slide is the head on the Howard, but then you get into other whistles. This is a Carry Chieftain. The tuning slide is a thing of its own that comes down and slides on. So that's that. And I've heard, so there's this collar here as part of the tuning slide. And there are other little bits of the tuning slide I won't worry about. I've heard Phil Hardy talk about this as the collette. But let's just call that the tuning slide. And then you'd refer to the whole thing as the head. And then some whistles like the MK Pro, the tuning slide is, they've got the head and then the body, the tube, that's integrated, and that's like a brass insert into there that enables the two pieces to fit together. And always keep that well lubricated with cork grease. That's really important. You don't have to cork grease your Howard, but you do have to keep the tape replaced, and some other whistles are like that. And like I said, I'm not diving into how all of this impacts the tone. I just want us to know the words. The terms are important to know. You're going to hear them, and as you're growing as a musician playing the whistle, you want to say, oh, I know kind of what that probably means. Or, oh yeah, that's a fuzzy word, I don't really care. But I wanted to give us some of these definitions. I hope it's helpful, my friends. If you appreciated the video, please hit the like button. I'd like to hear any other terms you use, or any others that have been used to refer to some of these pieces, because I know it's broad terms often used. So throw some others in the comments. And if you're brand new checking us out, please subscribe. We'd love to have you for the journey. Until next time, this is Scott Shade. Happy whistling, friends.